We have this what motherhood is on social media. We have all of these beautiful, slender women in a kitchen, barefoot, making sourdough bread in these beautiful floral dresses that cost hundreds of dollars, and all of these things. And I think you're setting up women for failure. Hi everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Hyla Home. Here we talk about motherhood, natural living, and homemaking, which includes renovating our 1940s home. Today I want to talk about kind of the idealization of motherhood. And I kind of feel like in a way we have kind of gotten away from the realistic aspects of motherhood, and so I kind of just want to share my journey to motherhood, what my expectations were, kind of how they changed, and then how I feel like I view motherhood now that I've been in the thick of it for over 2 years and going. So I feel like the picture everyone sees nowadays is barefoot moms in a beautiful kitchen, flawless house with minimal toys, holding their children in beautiful floral dresses that cost hundreds of dollars, dancing and just romanticizing this life that they live in their homes with their spouses. And not that that is wrong, because it's not. I'm very glad we have this push towards women wanting to be mothers and wanting to stay home and raise their children and wanting to homeschool. And all of those are really good things. But I feel like we might have gotten away from the thick of it, what it really boils down to. It's not necessarily just about the aesthetic or about the romantic feeling and essence that we get. It's so much more than that. And what I see a lot of the times is be a post with all of these B-roll shots of the woman in her pretty dress with her children doing different tasks around the house, saying, "You said I couldn't romanticize life, watch me." Or, "I once thought that living a storybook dream life wasn't possible, watch me do it." And all of these things. And I think I kind of feel like you're setting up women who aren't social media influencers up a little bit for failure. We had one extreme where it was, we don't want women in the home. We want you to get a career. We want all women to go to college. And then we have like this converse to that, which is, no, it's infinitely more than all of that. And it's so fulfilling and it's so beautiful. It is in a way, but it's also not. And so I just want to kind of share with you my perspective on things to kind of give, especially new moms, a well-rounded perspective on everything. When I got pregnant, I've said before, and I'll say it now, my husband and I were not planning on having children. We got married very, very young. I was only 18, and we wanted to work our jobs, work overtime, work as much as we can, and save up as much money as possible, which we were doing quite well at that. Travel like crazy, which we were just starting to do, and then write. And our goal was to make it big, to publish, and then once we had savings, once we had the freedom, settle down, buy a house, and raise our children. And that didn't happen. We got pregnant, and I'm not going to lie and say I was ecstatic. I wasn't. I was going to shoot a wedding for friends of ours, and I found out the day before, and it was such a shock that my husband ended up taking off just so that we could process it. It kind of felt like our dreams were shattering. And I don't want to say that from like a place of, yeah, it wasn't what I would have wanted, because I see the way the Lord has worked in our life for that to be so much better than the plans we had. But it was definitely earth-shattering for us. And it felt like we had a 20-year setback when we found out. So my initial premise of motherhood actually came from more of a feminist perspective, which was, you do have to go out and do your career. You do have to do all these things. You have to work. Because I like work. I love careers. I like working up the ladder. I have always enjoyed that. And so for me, it did kind of feel like everything that narrative of today says, that children are going to hold you back and all of these things. That's what I thought, because that was a perspective I was coming from. Now, this even goes as far as to say that my husband felt a little bit in the same way that I did. So for me, my initial perspective and understanding of motherhood was a setback on my life. And that's how it was kind of not presented to me, but it in a way it was. I was very depressed, and it was probably a dark period of my life anyway, just because I'd recently lost my mom and it just didn't feel like the right time. During my first pregnancy, I started following social media accounts and trying to figure out this whole mom thing. I'd never babysat children before. I'd never even held a baby. I hadn't changed a diaper. I definitely hadn't fed a baby. And all of it was so overwhelming because I felt like I had years of work to catch up on. I hadn't planned on having children. I wanted to wait until I was in my 30s before having children. And all of a sudden it was put on me as a teenager still, and it was very overwhelming and scary. And so I did a ton of research. I probably watched several days worth of YouTube videos just trying to figure out the whole motherhood thing. My husband, who is very gracious and I'm very fortunate for, was definitely very much a kid/baby person. He really encouraged me that it was not going to be as hard as I thought it was going to be, that he was really going to step up for me, that, he had changed babies' diapers, he had watched little kids, he knew the things, and that it wasn't as hard as I was making it out to be in my mind. He was like, I'm going to be here to help you. He was the one who looked into birth center births, because before then I thought that you had to go to a hospital to have a birth. And not that hospital births are bad, but the last experience I had in a hospital was after my mom had surgery for cancer, and I remember just feeling so depressed and even thinking like, I don't want to have my children here. And I just thought that you had to, when I realized that I didn't have to go to the hospital, that I didn't have to stir up all of those bad and very depressing memories, that I could have it in a very beautiful environment. I was all for that. And so he looked up the birth center, he did a ton of research, he went with me to all the tours with the midwives, and so he really helped me get started on that. He was the one that suggested cloth diapers. And then after that, I just got on this whole trail of sustainability and natural living for your baby, natural fiber clothing, and that's really what started my journey. And while I'm discovering all this, while I'm shifting my ideal from having a baby is a setback on your mind to now I'm seeing this romanticized Instagram mom, and I'm like, that's what I want to be, because I cared about the aesthetics. I cared about the art. I want to be a writer, for goodness sake. Like, I danced, I played music. Like, art was such an integrated part of my life that it felt like, oh, now I can express myself through motherhood in this artistic, aesthetic way, like all of these women are doing. So I very quickly swung the pendulum, and now I no longer thought it was a setback and anything like that. I thought, now I can really flourish, and now I can really be an artist. I can really express myself through motherhood. And I just kind of all swung like that. And then I had all of these ideals. I knew on paper basically everything there was to know about a newborn because of all the hundreds of hours of research that I did while I was pregnant. And then I went into labor, and things were not at all what I expected. I had a very long labor. It was very painful. I didn't deal with it the way I thought I would be able to. There was the suggestion of an episiotomy because of just the way things were going. I tore really bad. My postpartum period was just awful. I had a horrible recovery. I ended up fainting. It was just a rough time, and during that time something was wrong with our shower, and I had to go over to my in-laws to shower. And I just remember that first month really of being a new mom just feeling so drained and disgusting. I didn't even feel like myself. I remember I felt like my husband and I were no longer friends. I felt like I didn't know who he was. I felt like my daughter didn't need me because I had to supplement the first week of her life. I felt like everyone was judging me for everything that I had decided I wanted to do with natural living, and that I was just being this controlling freak kind of. And then on top of that, I was living in my pajamas, not getting a shower in, and just not going anywhere. And it was kind of a dark time. I had a really hard time letting people come over too, because I didn't want to rely on anyone. I had this, and I still kind of have this mentality where it's like, you have to figure it out yourself. You need to be able to survive as if everyone on the planet just dies. And that's not a healthy mentality to have. So I didn't like it when my aunt came over once a week to just give me a break. It kind of stressed me out, and I felt like she was trying to be in my life, which is so crazy. Like, people shouldn't want to be in your lives. I felt like my mother-in-law wanted to tell me what to do and was judging me on the things I was doing with my daughter. It was just kind of crazy. And I know, obviously, looking back on it all, that a lot of it was just postpartum hormones. I think, too, I might have had some slight symptoms of postpartum depression during that time. But I think a lot of it, too, did come from I had these ideals about motherhood and how beautiful it was going to be and how romantic, and it wasn't that. So then I kind of default to my original feeling of I'm not even a person anymore. And both are wrong. Both are incorrect mentalities to have. They're not realistic mentalities to have. I wasn't a non-person just because I had a baby. I still could pursue the things I wanted to. And it definitely helped when I went back to school and I went back to my job and those sorts of things. And I had things outside of my baby and my home. But too, it wasn't all romantic and sunflower and florals. It was hard sometimes. You know, you clean poopy diapers. That's not romantic. That's not anything anyone's going to show you on Instagram. You don't show on Instagram the fact that you're covered in spit up half of the day and that you have to change your clothes 3 times. Like, those aren't things we show on Instagram. And so when that's happening and I feel gross and I can't figure out why everyone else has it, in my opinion, so much better than I do, it was a toxic environment for me to be consistently watching. And I remember it kind of clicked for me when I was scrolling through Instagram, because I spent way too much time on social media with my new baby because you're nursing all the time. My daughter nursed forever. Starting off, she'd like nurse for an hour straight, and that was also very overwhelming. But she would be falling asleep and I would just nurse while she slept, and then I'd watch a movie or scroll social media. And while I was doing that one time, I came across this post that said, I baby wear my baby all the time. And when I'm not baby wearing my baby, they are on the floor doing tummy time, or I'm reading them a book, or they're doing contrast cards. And I remember at that moment for a second, I was like, I'm not doing that. She's gonna be so dumb. And then it hit me and I was like, that woman doesn't do that. There's no way. She doesn't do that every single wake window. I don't believe it. And if she does, then everything else in her life is not getting done. And it hit me that I wasn't seeing the real aspects of motherhood. I wasn't seeing what I was seeing. And that's because nobody was showing it. It wasn't because nobody else experienced it. And so that was kind of an eye-opener, like, you know, some of this stuff is a little crazy. And it just kind of gave me a new perspective on things. And then I learned too, a lot of it is just personal choice. Like, those women choose to dress in beautiful floral dresses around their house. Does that mean that those dresses are in perfect condition? No. Does that mean that they don't have stains? No. It just means that they decided that's the sacrifice they're willing to make. They're fine wearing their nice dresses around their house because where else are they going to wear them if they're staying at home? And why not? To be honest, why not feel like a romantic princess around your house if you can? And if that makes you feel good. The only thing is, now everyone thinks that that's the ideal. And I know I do the same thing, but the reason I swapped to wearing dresses around the house was because it did make me feel better about myself. It did make me kind of have a reason to get excited about them. I love picking out my outfit for the day, and that's probably incredibly shallow, but it is something special to me, and in a way, it's self-care. I like putting together outfits. I like doing my hair, which I didn't do today, but normally I do. I like those things. So why wouldn't I do that? But to somebody on the outside, it might just look like I rolled out of bed that way, or that, you know, they need to be looking like that. And that's not the truth. It's just you do things for yourself. I, for example, which is probably quite obvious, don't really have a skincare routine. What happens is my face gets oily and bad. I start washing it every day and doing moisturizer and all that, and it works. And then I'm like, oh yay, it worked, and I stop doing it and it goes back to this. And so it's like, but if I was on social media all the time and sharing my flawless skin, you would think that that's something that either I naturally had or that you needed to be doing. And not everyone obviously comes to those two conclusions, but a lot of people do. And for me, at least, you know, that's not really something I care about. So it just has to be something you care about. And I think a lot of the romanticizing in motherhood is just those women care about the aesthetics of their home. Those women care that they look beautiful. They care about twirling in their kitchen, in their dresses, and that's something that makes them happy. That is their thing. But other things are, and I don't want to say suffering because of it, but they've made that a priority. you don't need to make that be your same priority. If you want to romanticize motherhood, then do it, but it's not going to be romantic if you don't take that step to romanticize it. And I think that's something I missed because I just assumed that having babies, having children, being around them was romantic in and of itself. And of course, in a way it is, but it's not. It's not aesthetic visually. And so don't think that just because your aesthetic doesn't match theirs, that they're equal, because they're not. It's just one individual has chosen to prioritize the visual aesthetics of their being, the way they look and the way their house is, where somebody else has prioritized maybe something different. So I think that really helps shift the perspective of what even is motherhood. Something I always kind of find funny is these women posting pictures of their children, in these cute little outfits running around the house. And I tried all that. I tried getting my daughter outfits that I think are so beautiful, and they just get stained. She doesn't like wearing dresses because they're too long, they interfere with her play, and anything beautiful or white or cotton or anything like that is stained to the max. So I just give her clothes that she likes, that are comfortable for her to wear, that are natural fiber, and she can run and not have to worry about it. Because I don't want to be hounding her about keeping her clothes clean. She's a little girl. She needs to get out and play in the mud. And I don't want to do that to my son either. I want him to not have to worry about his clothes. So when and if she wants to wear beautiful dresses, then I'll be more than happy to get them for her. But that's not something that makes her happy. So why would I do it? And so it just kind of makes me laugh when I see moms, have their sons and daughters, especially sons, in these beautiful, flawless outfits. And I'm like, that wouldn't work for me. But that's not a priority for me. Maybe it is for them. And, maybe that's just for that 5-second reel. But even still, for my kids, I want them to be comfortable. And if they at some point care about the aesthetics of their clothing, then I'll go with that and help them out, because that will be fun for me too. But the reason I care about romanticizing, say, my wardrobe is because that's something I care about and that's something fun for me. And if a stain gets on my dress, or if a thread gets snagged, or if something gets a hole in it, then I'm just going to be fine with it, because at least that dress got worn and loved. And then on the flip side, because I do want to talk about this, where the side that motherhood is a burden and it is something that holds you back in life. I definitely don't believe that, and I don't think it does. I can sympathize with that though, because I think I could very easily feel that way. And for me, it just helps to have something outside of motherhood that is very close to my identity, whether that be writing or video editing and filming, or, cooking from scratch, anything like that. Just having something that you can care about, that you can be a little bit passionate about, I think really helps, because something too is motherhood isn't going to last forever. It goes by so quickly, and it doesn't feel that way, but it really does. And you don't want to be an over-controlling mother of teenagers and be micromanaging your children's lives, because that's where all of your eggs are. You want to have your eggs spread out in different baskets so that when your children stop needing you so much, you're not so obsessed with still being needed by them. For me, even if it's just an hour or 2 hours a day, I do something outside of my children. And it really helps if you have a spouse who is willing to accommodate that time for you. If you don't, then I really, really recommend nap time. Children can take naps until they're 5 years old. And even after that, then they're old enough to play quietly in their room for an hour. I think quiet time is very, very beneficial, not only for parents, but for children. And I think it helps you feel human. And so what I would recommend is, for right now, I have a toddler who is really struggling with her naps. I obviously have a baby who's also struggling with his naps, but I can work around that and either wear him, or like I'm doing right now, I'm pumping his legs while I'm video editing, so I'm still pursuing something for me, and he's here, but it's not necessarily interfering with that. Well, for her, even though she is, struggling with taking longer naps, she can play in her crib. I can give her a toy that, she maybe doesn't get to play with, so it's super cool for her, and she can sit down there quietly with some music or maybe a book going and enjoy that time with that toy, and she'll be entertained for at least 45 minutes. And independent play is great for children. Quiet time is great for children. It's really helpful in their development. So don't feel bad about then using that time to do something for you. I'm also a proponent of like cleaning and cooking and doing the house chores when your children are awake. I know that's very difficult and I struggle because of I've made that choice, but I think it really helps because then you're not feeling guilty about taking the time to do the thing you want to pursue while your children are either sleeping or actively involved in like a distractive play like the crib like I was talking about. So that's something else I really encourage you is just try to get the things done that you can while they're awake. For me, I really get around that by baby wearing. Baby wearing has been a lifesaver in so many ways. I put them on my back from a very young age. I know there's controversy about it, but people have been doing it for thousands of years, so I think I'm fine. Just learn how to do it properly and you'll be good. I put my children on my back. I turn on some music so that they can dance, and I just tackle the housework. I tackle the things I can. There's obviously some cleaning things that I will need assistance for, and in that case, sometimes my husband will take the children for an hour after he gets home from work, or he'll help me, or I will do that towards the end or beginning of nap time. I'll work it in there somewhere, but I always make time to pursue my goals too, because I could easily get depressed about that. I know my personality. I could get depressed about that. I could feel like I am constantly talking to little voices and picking up little toys, and that could get on top of me very quickly. But having something to work towards outside of them, even if it doesn't come to fruition while they're young, at least gives me something that gives me time or dedication to work for. That way, once they do grow up, I haven't lost the ability to do things. I know a couple of women in my life who their children are growing up, they're starting to get married and move out, and they just say that now they don't know what to do with themselves. They worked before and now they have children, and now that they're becoming empty nesters, their husbands still work, they don't really know what to do with the extra time. They don't have any hobbies, they don't have anything they love. So I feel like keeping that in your life does help with once you have children leaving, because at least you can work towards that after they're gone. And I don't want to say that anything outside of your child that you could work towards is any more important, because it's not. Your child comes first and your child is most important. But I do think it helps with your own sanity, especially if you come from that mentality that children are a setback, which they're not. They're not a setback. That's not what I'm here to say. But I know that it can feel that way sometimes. And so working towards something, even if it's just crocheting or knitting, doing something that you like because you like it, that really helps. Really helps a whole lot. So I hope that was kind of a perspective on motherhood that really helps you know what to expect. I know I share a lot of my life as being romantic and me fulfilling my goals and my dreams, but honestly, sometimes it's just hard. Sometimes all day just deal with screaming and fussing because the weather's bad. Nobody can go outside. Some days look like that and they're really ugly, but some days are going to be so romantic and so beautiful, just like that Instagram story, without even trying. And then some days you're going to work towards your goals like you never have before. And motherhood and all of your knowledge with it is going to strengthen you more because of it. Some days will look like those too. So just be encouraged by that. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that was helpful to you, or at least encouraging. You all have blessed days. Thank you so much for watching to the end of this video. I hope to see you in the next video, and bye. I love you.